In the ancient stories of Zeus's childhood, before he became the mighty god who hurled thunderbolts and ruled the skies, there was a time when he was still a fragile infant, hidden away in a secret cave on the rugged slopes of Mount Dicta in the island of Crete, far from the eyes of his devouring father, Cronos. It was here that Amalthea, a gentle she-goat, or according to some, a nymph, served as his nurse, offering her milk to nourish the young god in those early days. This nurturing was crucial for Zeus, who grew strong under Amalthea's care, though not yet capable of the feats that would one day define him. At that time, he had not yet taken his first dancing leaps or cast his lightning bolts to fight the Titans in their great war. Nor had the mighty thunderclaps begun to roar with their terrible bang and boom through the stormy clouds. Amalthea's role went beyond mere nourishment. Her hide was destined to become the Aegis, the powerful thunder shield that Zeus would carry into battle, a symbol of storm and protection. From her crown, Zeus fashioned the Horn of Plenty, or cornucopia, a magical vessel that could endlessly provide abundance, blessing the gods and mortals alike. In the night sky, Amalthea was immortalized among the stars as the constellation Capra, surrounding the bright star Capella on the arm of Auriga, the charioteer. This goat on the arm is thought to represent the stormy Aegis shield of Zeus, which classical art sometimes depicted as a tasseled hide draped across his arm. The rising of Capella was a signal to the ancient Greeks that stormy weather was coming, linking the constellation, and therefore Amalthea herself, to the forces of storm and sky. The word Aegis itself carries this dual meaning, both stormy weather and goatskin, which explains the close connection in the myths between the goat Amalthea and the thunderous storms Zeus commands. As for Amalthea's origins, stories tell that she was connected to the Curetes, the fierce warrior guardians who protected Zeus in his infancy. Among the Curetes, two names stand out as parents in some accounts: Haimonios and Olenos, figures tied to ancient lineages and myths. Amalthea herself bore two kids, further linking her to the continuing life and fertility of the natural world. Scholars and ancient lexicographers, like Hesychius, debated the meaning of her name, offering different roots. Some derived it from the verb amaltheuan, meaning to nourish or to enrich, emphasizing her role as caretaker. Others linked it to amalthactos, meaning firm or hard, perhaps referring to her strong and enduring nature. And still others broke it down to Amale and Thea, meaning divine goat or tender goddess, pointing to her sacred, almost divine status in the mythic world. Thus, Amalthea stands as a complex figure, both humble and exalted, a symbol of nurture and power intertwined. Her care allowed the infant Zeus to grow safely, away from the dangers of Cronos' jealousy and hunger, setting the stage for the great god's future triumphs. Through her milk, her hide, and her place among the stars, Amalthea's presence is felt in the very essence of Zeus's divine strength and the storms he commands over sky and earth. Stories about Amalthea, the beloved nurse of infant Zeus, are many and varied, with different traditions trying to explain her true nature and her role in the early life of the king of gods. Some say that her name comes from the Greek word amelgine, meaning to milk or suck, perfectly capturing her nurturing role in the myth as the goat who suckled the young Zeus with her nourishing milk in the hidden cave on Mount Dicta, away from the cruel grasp of his father Cronos. In this telling, Amalthea was a simple but vital creature whose service to the god earned her eternal honor when she was placed among the stars, forever shining in the night sky as a constellation, a reminder of her gentle care and the beginnings of Zeus's rise to power. Other traditions give Amalthea a more divine origin, describing her not as a mere goat, but as a nymph, a daughter of powerful figures such as Oceanus, the ancient god of the vast ocean, Helios, the shining sun, Hymeneus, or even the Cretan king Melisseus, linking her to the royal and divine bloodlines of ancient mythic Greece. As a nymph, Amalthea's role expands beyond nurse to a sacred being who provided Zeus with the milk of a goat, blending both her goat-like and divine natures into one figure of great importance. The stories also tell of a magical event where one of the goat's horns was broken off, a moment of transformation that gave birth to the legendary cornucopia, or horn of plenty. In some versions, the nymph Amalthea herself filled the broken horn with fresh herbs and fruit, offering it to Zeus, who then placed both the goat and the horn among the stars to commemorate their significance. In other accounts, Zeus himself broke off the horn and gave it to the daughters of Melisseus, bestowing upon it the wondrous power to instantly fill with whatever its possessor desired, making it a symbol of endless abundance and generosity. This magical horn became central to many Greek stories, symbolizing plenty and prosperity, and was later widely recognized in art and literature as the cornucopia, the ultimate emblem of bounty. A different version of Amalthea's story comes from the historian Diodorus, who tells of a maiden of extraordinary beauty named Amalthea who was married by the Libyan king Ammon. This Amalthea was given a fertile piece of land shaped like a bull's horn, which was thereafter named the Horn of Amalthea, linking her story to the land's prosperity and fertility rather than to the goat and milk imagery. These diverse tales show how Amalthea's identity blended myth, nature, and divinity, making her a key figure in the upbringing of Zeus, the god who would go on to overthrow Cronus and rule the gods with thunder and lightning. Her image, whether as goat, nymph, or queen, carries the themes of nourishment, protection, and abundance that were essential to the survival and future greatness of Zeus, and through him, to the order of the world itself. The Horn of Amalthea remains one of the most powerful symbols from Greek mythology, representing the endless gifts of the earth and the sky, echoing the deep connection between the divine and the natural worlds in these ancient stories. The story of Amalthea and her horn is one of many interpretations that blend ancient myth with simple, everyday objects, turning the horn into a symbol rich with meaning and history. This account, like others, tries to explain the myth in a more practical way, suggesting that the horn itself was likely one of the earliest and simplest vessels used for drinking by humans, a natural item shaped from the horn of an animal and used to hold liquids. In this sense, the tale of Amalthea giving baby Zeus milk from a horn is rooted not just in myth, but also in the common experience of ancient peoples, making the story both accessible and sacred at the same time. Evidence of this ancient tradition survives in works of art, like the piece preserved in the Galleria Justiniani, which shows Amalthea nursing Zeus with the horn, a visual reminder of the deep connection between nurture, nature, and the divine. Over time, the Horn of Plenty, or cornucopia, became a well-known symbol often linked to figures like Tyche or Fortuna, the goddesses of fortune and luck, emphasizing its role as a source of abundance and good fortune in the world of gods and mortals alike. The Greek name Ix Olenios, meaning the goat of the lower arm, refers to Amalthea herself, highlighting her close relationship with Zeus and her importance in the myths surrounding his early life. According to the ancient mythographer Pseudo-Apollodorus, Rhea, Zeus's mother, when pregnant with him, fled to the island of Crete to give birth in a secret cave on Mount Dicta, far from the reach of the cruel Cronus who had swallowed his other children. In this hidden refuge, Zeus was placed under the watchful care of the Curetes, fierce, armored warriors who banged their spears on their shields to mask the infant's cries, ensuring Cronos would not discover his newborn son. Alongside the Curetes, two nymphs, Adrasteia and Ida, daughters of Melicius, took on the sacred duty of nursing and protecting Zeus. These nymphs fed the young god the milk of Amalthea, blending divine nurture with earthly care, ensuring the child's survival and eventual rise to power. This myth is further echoed by Callimachus, the Greek poet of the 3rd century BC, who tells of the nymph Neda carrying the infant Zeus from his birthplace in Arcadia to the island of Crete, where the Corybantes, a group closely related to the Curetes, took the child into their arms, protecting him with their wild dance and fierce clashing of weapons. The Melian nymphs of Dicte, including Adrasteia, cradled Zeus in a golden bed, providing warmth, comfort, and nourishment in the face of danger from his father. These stories, told across centuries, emphasize the care and protection surrounding Zeus in his infancy, portraying a time when the future king of the gods was vulnerable and hidden from harm. Amalthea, whether goat or nymph, is at the heart of this protection, her milk a symbol of life and growth, her horn a symbol of bounty and blessing. Together, the nymphs, the Curetes, and Amalthea formed a sacred circle of guardianship around the infant Zeus, shielding him from harm and preparing him for the destiny that awaited him as the ruler who would overthrow Cronos and bring order to the cosmos. This blending of nature and divinity, of myth and simple human experience, creates a vivid picture of Zeus's beginnings, a tale of nurture, protection, and the power of cleverness and loyalty in the face of overwhelming danger. The story of Zeus's early life is deeply woven with the image of Amalthea, the she-goat who nourished the infant god with her rich milk, a symbol of care and sustenance during the most vulnerable time of his existence. As the ancient Greek poet Aratus described in his poem Phenomena, Zeus suckled the rich teat of Amalthea and also ate the sweet honeycomb, a combination that speaks of both natural nourishment and the sweetness of divine favor. This holy goat, known in legend as the giver of the breast to Zeus, was called by interpreters of Zeus the Olenian goat, linking her identity closely to the region near Olyne, which lay in the land of Achaia. The Greek geographer Strabo also recorded this story, noting that near the city of Aegion in Achaia, the sacred goat Amalthea was said to have nursed Zeus. The poet Aratus's words echo this belief, emphasizing the special place of Amalthea in the myth, and firmly associating the nurturing goat with the geography of the area, revealing how the myth was closely tied to real locations known to the ancient Greeks. According to the historian Diodorus Siculus, the Curetes, fierce guardians and warriors, took the newborn Zeus to a secret cave where they handed him over to the nymphs, who were given the sacred duty to care for the child's every need. These nymphs fed the infant on a mixture of honey and milk, and importantly, from the udder of the goat Amalthea, blending the sweetness of honey with the richness of goat's milk. This nurturing not only kept Zeus alive, but honored Amalthea in the process. Zeus himself gave special recognition to this goat, even taking a surname from her, becoming known as Aegiokos, which means aegis-bearing, a title that connects Zeus directly to Amalthea and her protective qualities. The mythographer Antoninus Liberalis added to this tale by telling how, when Rhea feared the threat posed by Cronos, she hid Zeus in the Cretan cave, and Amalthea provided her udder to nourish the godchild. Rhea also sent a golden dog to guard the goat, showing the careful and magical protection surrounding Zeus's early life. After Zeus grew up and defeated the Titans, overthrowing Cronos and claiming power, he rewarded Amalthea by transforming her into an immortal being. This immortal goat was placed among the stars, becoming a constellation to remind all of her nurturing role in divine service. This story of Amalthea as both nurse and protector highlights the blend of nature and divine magic in Zeus's birth and upbringing, emphasizing how his survival depended not only on his mother's courage and the warrior's protection, but also on the humble yet powerful goat whose milk gave him life and strength in those earliest days. Throughout this tale, Amalthea is much more than just a goat. She is a sacred symbol of life, protection, and the natural world's role in the divine story of Zeus, the king of gods. Zeus's early life and the divine care he received is rich with sacred images and powerful protection, carried on through ancient tales and starry signs. According to Pseudo-Hyginus, after Rhea, called Opis by some, gave birth to Jove, Zeus's Roman name, by Saturn, known in Greek as Cronus, the infant god was taken by Juno, or Hera, to the island of Crete, far from the eyes of the jealous and devouring father. There, Amalthea, the nurse and guardian of the child, hung him safely in a cradle suspended from a tree. This clever hiding place was chosen so Zeus could be found neither in the heavens, nor on the earth, nor in the sea, protecting him from Cronos' wrath. To prevent the baby's cries from giving away his location, Amalthea summoned a group of fierce youths and armed them with small bronze shields and spears, ordering them to march noisily in a circle around the tree. Their clashing shields and the banging of spears created a deafening uproar meant to cover the baby's innocent cries, deceiving Cronos. These noisy warriors were known by the name Curetes in Greek tradition, fierce protectors who guarded Zeus's infancy with great courage and cunning. This protective circle of warriors kept watch over Zeus, ensuring he grew safely away from danger until he was strong enough to fulfill his destiny. The starry heavens themselves hold the memory of these ancient myths. The constellation Auriga, the charioteer, carries on its arm the image of a goat, known as Capra, and in its left hand, the constellation called the Kids seems to nestle protectively. These stars recall the story of Olympus, son of the god Vulcanus, or Hephaestus, as he is known in Greek myth, who had two daughters named Aix and Helpless. These daughters were the nurses of Zeus, nymphs who cared for the god as he lay hidden from his father's cruel hunger. Ancient cities took their names from these figures, like Olympus in Aulis, Helpless in the Peloponnese, and Aix in Haemonia, connecting the earthly geography to the divine myth. Another tradition holds that a king named Melicius ruled in Crete, and to his daughters Zeus was brought to nurse. However, these nymphs had no milk to offer the infant god, so they gave him a she-goat named Amalthea, who is said to have reared him with her nourishing milk. This goat, in turn, bore twin kids, which were placed among the stars as a reward for her kindness and care. The astronomer Cleostratus of Tenedos is credited with first pointing out these celestial kids, marking them forever in the night sky. Another voice in the mythic tradition, Musaeus, said that Zeus was nurtured not only by Amalthea, but also by Themis and other nymphs, further emphasizing the divine and earthly collaboration that surrounded the god in his earliest days. Thus, Zeus's infancy was guarded by a combination of natural creatures and divine helpers, blending the power of the wild with the grace of the gods. Amalthea's role as nurse was sacred, her milk sustaining the future king of the gods, and her presence immortalized in the stars, symbolizing nourishment, protection, and the hidden strength that would one day overthrow the tyrant Cronos. The Curetes, with their shields and spears, formed a living barrier of sound and courage, ensuring that the infant's cries remained a secret, and the night was filled not with danger, but with the determined defense of a god yet to rise. The heavens themselves honor this story, keeping alive the memory of the goat and her young ones, alongside the bravery of those who shielded the divine child. The myth of Zeus's nursing and protection is thus a story of cunning, care, and cosmic destiny, told through the voices of poets, mythographers, and the stars that still shine above. Zeus, the mighty king of gods, was entrusted to the care of many divine figures from the moment of his birth, with his mother Rhea, also called Ops, giving him over to them for protection from the wrath of his father Cronus. Among those who nurtured the infant god was Amalthea, who had a special place in this tale, a goat known for nursing Zeus with her nourishing milk in a secret cave on the island of Crete. This goat was no ordinary creature, but a sacred symbol of care and protection in the hidden early days of the god who would one day rule all. Some traditions add more layers to this story, naming Aex, a daughter of the sun god Helios, as a nurse of Zeus. She was said to be astonishingly beautiful in body, but terrifying in face, so much so that the Titans, fearing her power, asked Gaia, the Earth Mother, to hide her away. Gaia did as they requested, hiding Aex in a remote cave in Crete, where she too became one of the divine nurses who watched over young Zeus. This care was more than simple nursing. It was preparation for a great future. When Zeus grew confident and ready to wage war against the Titans, he was told by an oracle that victory could only be assured if he carried the protection of the skin of a goat and the head of a gorgon, a creature known for its petrifying gaze. The Greeks called this protective power the aegis, a magical shield or cloak. With the aegis in hand, Zeus overcame the Titans and seized the kingdom, establishing his rule over gods and men alike. The story continues that after the battle, Zeus took the remaining bones of the sacred goat, wrapped them in a skin, and gave them life anew, placing them in the stars as a lasting memorial. This cosmic tribute celebrated the goat's crucial role in his survival and triumph. Later, Zeus gifted the aegis, the powerful shield he had used in battle, to the goddess Athena, who carried it into her own heroic deeds. This legend of Amalthea and the aegis extends even to the stars, weaving the earthly and divine together in the night sky. The star Capella, known as the Olenian goat, is said to have been born as a celestial sign connected to the cradle of Jupiter, the Roman name for Zeus. It is said to be the reward given to the goat for her milk and protection. In the forests of Mount Ida in Crete, Amalthea hid Zeus away, guarding him in the wild and providing him with sustenance. She was known to have 2 young goats among her flock, a glorious sight with their high, curling horns and a nurturing presence fitting for the nurse of a god. One story tells that Amalthea once broke off one of her horns against a tree, losing part of her beauty. However, the nymph who cared for her quickly gathered the broken horn, decorated it with fresh herbs and fruits, and gave it back to Zeus to drink from. This horn, filled with blessings, would come to be known as the cornucopia, or the horn of plenty, a symbol of endless nourishment and abundance. Zeus's connection to Amalthea was not only one of survival, but also of growth and strength, linking the divine power of a god to the humble but vital care of a goat and her horn. Through this simple yet sacred act, the story shows how even the greatest gods rely on the kindness and protection of creatures both wild and divine, and how those moments of vulnerability are honored and remembered forever, both on earth and in the heavens above. The tale of Zeus's infancy and the nurturing care he received is one woven with deep reverence and wonder, a story told through the ages that celebrates both the divine and the humble elements that shaped the king of gods. Zeus, once an infant hidden away in a secret cave on Mount Dicte in Crete, was not left to grow alone or unprotected. Instead, he was watched over by divine nymphs and guarded by the fierce and loyal Coretes, warriors who clanged their shields and beat their spears against them in wild, thunderous dances to drown out the cries of the newborn god, so that his father Cronus could not hear him and come to devour him. The noise they made echoed among the rocky caves and hills, a brave and clever ruse to protect the future ruler of the heavens. Among those who cared for Zeus was a sacred she-goat named Amalthea, a figure of nurturing strength and kindness. This goat, with her rich, nourishing milk, gave the infant god sustenance, enabling him to grow strong in spirit and body within the shelter of the cave. Amalthea's role was vital. She was more than an animal. She was a symbol of life-giving power and divine protection. She offered her udder freely, and Zeus suckled from it, gaining the strength he would one day need to overthrow the Titans and claim his throne among the gods. The story of Amalthea extends beyond mere nursing. It is intertwined with cosmic symbolism and eternal honor. The she-goat's name became immortalized among the stars, a shining tribute to the creature whose milk and care helped shape the king of gods. This celestial honor is reflected in the constellation Capra, the goat standing proudly on the arm of the charioteer, the figure known as Auriga, whose star Capella is said to mark the onset of stormy weather. This connection between the goat and storms is more than myth. It is rooted in the ancient understanding that the word aegis meant both the skin of a goat and the protection of stormy weather, linking Amalthea's hide to the fierce shield of Zeus himself. According to some traditions, the hide of Amalthea was fashioned into the aegis, a mighty shield that bore magical power and provided divine protection in battle. The aegis became one of the most powerful symbols of Zeus's rule and was later given to Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, who carried it into her own battles as a sign of divine strength. Amalthea's story is also connected to the famed Horn of Plenty, or cornucopia, which originated when the goat broke off one of her horns. The nymphs who cared for Zeus took this broken horn, filled it with fresh herbs and ripe fruits, and presented it to the infant god. This horn became a symbol of abundance, nourishment, and endless provision, forever linking Amalthea's gift to the prosperity of gods and men. This sacred horn was placed among the stars alongside the goat, a testament to the generosity and care that helped Zeus rise to power. The care given to Zeus in those early days was crucial, for it was in this hidden cave, protected by the clashing shields of the Coretes and nourished by the milk of Amalthea, that Zeus was able to grow strong enough to face the greatest challenge of all, the Titanomachy, the war against the Titans who once ruled the cosmos. Throughout ancient texts, poets and historians alike celebrate this humble beginning. Ovid, in his Fasti, speaks of the sacred goat who fed Zeus, honoring her place near his cradle and telling of how the star Capella shines in the heavens as a reminder of her care. Nonnus, in his epic Dionysiaca, tells of the sacred cave where Zeus was hidden, where Amalthea's milk sustained him and the noise of clanging shields kept him safe. The divine dance of the Coretes and the watchful eyes of the nymphs formed a circle of protection around the infant god, ensuring that Cronos' hunger for his children was tricked by the clever substitution of a stone wrapped in swaddling clothes. This deception gave Zeus the time and safety to mature, growing in strength and spirit under the watchful care of Amalthea and the guardians of the cave. Even the ancient Byzantine lexicon, the Suda, notes that Amalthea's name itself comes from the idea of softening or soothing, reflecting the gentleness and care she brought to the young god's life. This nurturing by Amalthea was no mere background detail but a foundational myth that shaped how the ancients understood the rise of Zeus and the establishment of his rule. It was her milk that nourished him, her protection that shielded him, and her broken horn that became a symbol of endless abundance and divine favor. Her story reminds us that even the mightiest of gods owes their strength to the humble acts of care and protection in their earliest moments. Zeus's eventual triumph over the Titans, his ruling of heaven and earth, and the creation of the Aegis all stem from this sacred beginning in the cave on Mount Dicte, with Amalthea's milk and the thunderous shields of the Curetes keeping him safe until the time was right to claim his destiny. Thus, from the hidden shadows of the cave to the bright stars above, the tale of Amalthea and the nursing of Zeus endures as a powerful story of survival, nurturing, and the mysterious bonds that connect gods and creatures alike. It is a story of how life's strength often comes from unexpected places, of how care and protection can shape the course of the world, and how even the greatest rulers of gods and men are forever linked to the humble figures who once fed and shielded them in their time of need. The sky, adorned with stars that honor the nurse and her fruitful horn, continues to tell this ancient story, reminding all who look upon it of the deep and lasting power of care, nourishment, and divine protection. The story of Aix, known as a Gorgon and said to be the daughter of the sun god Helios, tells of a figure both striking and terrifying, a paradox of great beauty of body, yet a frightful and horrible face, a duality that caused even the powerful Titans to fear and plead with the earth goddess Gaia to hide her away in a cave on the island of Crete. This Gorgon, Aix, later became the nurse of the young Jupiter, known to the Greeks as Zeus, who was hidden away during his infancy to protect him from his father Cronus, who was destined to be overthrown by his son, but sought to prevent this fate by devouring each of his children at birth. When the time came for Zeus to prepare for war against the Titans, an oracle revealed to him that victory would only come if he bore the skin of a goat and the head of the Gorgon into battle as protection. This powerful armor, known as the Aegis, became a symbol of divine power and protection, and with it, Zeus overcame the Titans and seized control of the cosmos, establishing his rule over gods and men. Afterward, he gifted this Aegis to Minerva, or Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, who carried the shield into her own battles, its terrifying power and protective strength helping her triumph. The story of the Aegis, crafted from the hide of a goat and the fearsome head of the Gorgon, highlights the theme of transformation and protection, showing how even fearsome elements can be turned into shields of strength for those destined to rule. Alongside this tale runs the story of the cornucopia, the famous horn of plenty, which was created from the horn of the same goat, Amalthea, who nursed the infant Zeus during his hidden years in Crete. The cornucopia became a powerful symbol of abundance and generosity, associated with gods of wealth, peace, and fortune such as Plutos, Hades, Irene, and Tyche. According to the mythographer Pseudo-Apollodorus, the river god Achelous once wrestled with the hero Heracles, who broke off one of Achelous' horns during their struggle. Heracles then traded this horn back to Achelous in exchange for the horn of Amalthea, a precious object that could produce limitless food and drink, meeting any desire. This horn, often called the horn of Amalthea, was said to be filled with every kind of fruit and harvest bounty, such as grapes, apples, and other autumn produce, symbolizing the endless generosity of nature and divine favor. In this way, the cornucopia became a visual symbol of plenty, often depicted in art and literature as overflowing with riches and abundance. Diodorus Siculus, the ancient historian, tells of the battle between Heracles and Achilles, who transformed into a bull during the fight, and how the horn broken off in their struggle was given to the people of Aetolia as a gift. This horn was called the Horn of Amalthea and was imagined as a vessel brimming with the fruits of the earth, a representation of prosperity and nourishment for all. Poets and artists gave this horn a special place in mythology, connecting it with the theme of life's richness and the blessings that flow from the gods. The horn's story, like the Aegis, is one of transformation, from a broken horn of a goat into a powerful symbol of unending generosity and protection. Through these myths, the humble goat Amalthea is celebrated not only as a nurse and protector of the great god Zeus, but also as the source of magical gifts that shaped the cosmos and human life. Thus, these intertwined myths reveal the deep connection between nurturing care and divine power, showing how the simplest of creatures, a goat, could become central to the fate of gods and the symbols of protection and abundance that echoed through the ages. The skin of the goat became a shield feared by enemies and a symbol of strength, while the horn became a vessel of plenty, filling the world with food and blessings. The legacy of Amalthea and her horn remains in stories and images, reminding us of the powerful gifts that come from care, protection, and the generosity of the earth and its creatures. Through these ancient tales, we see how the gods themselves are tied to the natural world, their power rooted in the life-giving forces of milk, nourishment, and protection, and how the symbols they carry, like the Aegis and the cornucopia, represent the profound and eternal bonds between the divine and the mortal. The horn of Achilles, the river god, was more than just a piece of mythology. It was deeply connected to the land, to the flowing streams and the fruits they nurtured. The horn symbolized the richness of the fertile earth that was watered by Achilles' stream, where apples, pomegranates, and grapes grew in abundance, spreading life and sustenance across the fruitful lands it touched. The river and its horn stood as emblems of the natural bounty, the flowing, life-giving force that nourished not only the earth, but also those who lived upon it. This connection between river, horn, and fruitfulness carried on in sacred spaces as well, where divine figures honored the gifts of nature. In the region of Elis, the god Sosipolis was worshipped in a small shrine near the sanctuary of Tyche, the goddess of fortune. Sosipolis was depicted as a young boy wrapped in a robe adorned with stars, holding in one hand the horn of Amalthea. This image linked the divine protector with symbols of abundance and cosmic order, the horn representing endless plenty and protection bestowed from the heavens. Similarly, in Aegira, located in Achaia, there stood a building where a statue of Tyche held the horn of Amalthea, symbolizing fortune and prosperity granted to mortals by the gods. The horn, as the story goes, came from Amalthea, the goat who nursed Zeus during his infancy. According to the Roman poet Ovid, this nurturing goat gave milk to the young god, but in an accident, she broke one of her horns against a tree, losing part of her beauty. The nymphs who cared for Zeus gathered the broken horn, wrapped it with fresh herbs, and filled it with fruits, then presented it to Zeus. This horn became a magical vessel, capable of producing endless food and drink, a symbol of the god's generosity and care. When Zeus ascended to rule the sky and heavens, he immortalized both Amalthea and her horn by placing them among the stars, so that their names and stories would live forever in the night sky. This heavenly marking honored the sacred nurse and her fruitful horn, which still bears her name, reminding all who looked upon the stars of the divine nurturing and abundance granted to the ruler of gods and men. The ancient Byzantine lexicon Suidas defines the horn of Amalthea as a symbol for those who live in abundance, follow a good and steady path, and flourish in life. This horn was more than a mythic object. It became a metaphor for life's prosperity and the blessings of stability and growth. It was said that life itself, when well lived, was like the horn of the goat Amalthea, full, rich, and softened by kindness and care. The name Amalthea itself is connected to the Greek verb malassistai, meaning to be softened, highlighting the nurturing nature of the goat who raised Zeus, showing how myths used language to deepen the symbolism of care and gentleness behind power and plenty. Amalthea's importance also stretches into the heavens, where she is associated with the constellation Capra, the sacred goat. In the 3rd century BC astronomical poem Phenomena by Aratus, the holy goat is described as the creature that gave milk to Zeus, becoming a celestial symbol of divine nurturing. The constellation represents the lasting cosmic honor given to Amalthea for her role in raising the great god. To the ancient Greeks, the stars were not just distant lights, but reminders of divine stories, lessons, and blessings that shaped the world. Amalthea's placement in the sky signifies how the natural world and the heavens are deeply intertwined, with nurturing and plenty bridging earth and cosmos. In sum, the horn of Amalthea, linked to the river god Achelous and the fruitful lands nourished by his waters, stands as a powerful symbol of abundance flowing from the earth's rivers and extending into the divine realms. The horn's journey, from a broken piece of a goat's body to a vessel overflowing with the fruits of the earth, to a star shining in the heavens, tells a story of transformation, care, and the blessings of nature and the gods. Across sacred sites and shrines, in poetry and lore, the horn appears as a reminder of life's generosity and the cosmic order that sustains it. Through these stories, Amalthea's horn continues to inspire the idea that nourishment, protection, and abundance come from both the earth and the divine, linking all beings to the sacred cycle of growth and care. The ancient Greeks told a beautiful and lasting story about a special goat, one that gave the breast to the infant Zeus, nourishing and protecting him in his earliest days when he was hidden away from his father Cronus, who sought to swallow his children. This goat, known among the interpreters of Zeus as the Olenian goat, was large and bright, a majestic creature whose care was essential to the god's survival. The story of this goat was not just a simple myth, but a symbol deeply rooted in the natural and cosmic order, representing nurture, protection, and divine favor. In the city of Phlios in Sicyonia, there was a special bronze statue of a she-goat, mostly covered with gold, which stood on the marketplace. The Phliasians honored this bronze goat with great respect and adorned it with gold because of a curious belief tied to the rising of the constellation they called the goat. This constellation was believed to cause damage to the vines, an important source of food and wine for the people, and so to protect their crops from harm, the people paid homage to the bronze goat as a way to appease the starry symbol and keep their harvests safe. This act of reverence shows how closely the myth of the nurturing goat was connected to everyday life, nature, and celestial signs, intertwining the divine with the practical in the minds of the ancients. The myth continued with the immortalization of this sacred goat by Zeus himself. After the great god grew strong and took his place among the Olympians, he transformed the goat, who had nursed him into an immortal being, placing her in the sky as a constellation for all to see. This story was recorded by Pseudo-Hyginus, a Roman mythographer, who explained that this immortal goat, named Amalthea, stood proudly upon the constellation of the charioteer, or Auriga. The constellation shows the goat, Capra, standing firm, and beside her are the kids, her twin offspring, who were also placed among the stars, rewarded for their mother's kindness and care. The ancient astronomer Cleostratus of Tenedos was credited with first identifying these stars as the children of Amalthea, marking the night sky with their tail. The constellation itself became a lasting monument to nurture, abundance, and the divine connection between earth and heaven. The story goes deeper, telling how Zeus fashioned his famous shield, the Aegis, from the skin of the sacred goat Amalthea. After using the hide to protect himself during the Titanomachy, the great war against the Titans, Zeus covered the remaining bones of the goat with skin and gave them life once again by placing them in the heavens. Thus, not only was Amalthea immortalized as a constellation, but her very essence was woven into the powerful symbols of Zeus's kingship and protection. The Aegis, a storm shield said to bring fear to enemies and shelter to allies, became a symbol not only of Zeus's might, but also of the nurturing protection first given by Amalthea in his infancy. This myth beautifully blends themes of care, transformation, and the enduring presence of the divine in the natural world and the cosmos. Ovid, the Roman poet, tells how this she-goat with her loving care was more than a mere animal. She was a figure of devotion and cosmic importance. The nurturing Amalthea provided the vital nourishment for the infant god in a secret cave on Crete, hidden away from the hunger of Cronus. The myth explains how the kindness of the goat and the surrounding divine protectors allowed Zeus to grow strong enough to challenge his father and the Titans, ultimately gaining dominion over the world. The story reminds us that even the mightiest gods depend on care and support in their beginnings, a lesson wrapped in symbolism that echoes across time and cultures. Throughout Greek myth and astronomy, the image of Amalthea and her kids in the stars serves as a celestial testament to this tale of nurture and divine favor. The constellation's presence in the sky meant that every night, people could look up and be reminded of the sacred bond between the earth's creatures and the gods. It was a reminder that strength and power are rooted in care and protection, that even the greatest rulers were once children who needed the warmth and milk of a loving nurse. This intertwining of myth, nature, and the stars gave the ancient world a rich tapestry of meaning, where every detail, from the bronze statue in the marketplace to the twinkling stars overhead, carried the story of Amalthea and the infant Zeus, an eternal story of life, nurture, and divine destiny. On the very first night, as the ancient sky stretched wide and dark, the star that once watched over the cradle of Jupiter, known to the Greeks as Zeus, shone brightly. This star, called the rainy sign of Olenian Capella, was born as a reward from heaven itself, a shining tribute to the she-goat who had given her milk to the infant god. It was said that when Zeus finally took control of the sky and settled upon his father's throne, asserting his rule over the heavens and the earth, he made stars out of the very nurse who had cared for him in those early, vulnerable days. This transformation into the heavens was not just a poetic image, but a lasting mark in the night sky, a symbol of the deep bond between the divine child and the creature who nurtured him. The she-goat, Amalthea, thus became immortalized, shining among the stars, a constant reminder of the sacred care that allowed the great god to grow strong and wise. Yet even as the stars told stories of care and nurture, the forces of nature spoke in their own powerful language for Okeanos, the vast primordial river god whose endless streams flowed through and beyond the earth, once threatened to divert his mighty waters through the heavens themselves, claiming he would swallow the shining goat. the nurse of Zeus, in a dramatic gesture of power over the celestial realm. This threat echoed through the ancient myths and lexicons, where the word aeges, meaning goats, was used to describe large waves in everyday speech. The term epaigizo, literally I goat up, was a vivid way to say I blow forcefully, capturing the wild, stormy winds that roared when the star of the goat shone brightest. These storms were called wild, goating up, linking the image of the goat star with the fierce power of the winds and waves, as if the very spirit of Amalthea's kind presence stirred the natural world in thunderous response. Thus, the myth of Amalthea, the nurturing she-goat who fed the infant Zeus, was intertwined with the movements of the heavens and the tempests of the earth, blending care and cosmic force in a story that was told and retold for centuries, echoing from the stars above to the crashing waves below, forever marking the night sky with the shining legacy of the goat that gave milk to the king of gods.